Hey everybody, welcome to RedZone. This is Shaun, I'm Mike, and this is your 2019 preview for the Texas Longhorns. Texas considered one to compete in the Big 12 this year, possibly win the Big 12, we don't know, but the media definitely loves them. I think they're 10th in the AP preseason. Yep. But before we get started on that, before we can talk about this year, let's see what they're coming off of. Let's look at the stats from 2018. So let's take a look at that right now. In 2018, first of all, we'll talk about they were the number 3. They had the number 3 recruiting class in 2018 and the number 5 recruiting class in 2019. So they definitely have a lot of talent coming up. They were 10-4 overall, 7-3 in the Big 12. They beat Georgia 28-21 in the Sugar Bowl. The offense averaged 31.1 points per game. That ranked 47th out of 130. The defense gave up on average 25.9 points per game. That ranked them 57th. On offense, they averaged 412 yards per game. That ranked 57th. And the defense gave up on average 393 yards per game. That ranked 67th. They were 19th in turnover margin. The offense gave the ball up 11 times. The defense created 20 turnovers. So that's what they had last year. They lost a lot. They were returning only 3 on defense. I'm not sure exactly how many on offense. They're going to be pretty good on offense. Yeah. So that's kind of like what they're looking forward to. Let's take a look at what they do have, the projected starters on offense. You have Sam Ehlinger returning. He was completed 275 passes off 425 attempts, 3,292 yards, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He was sacked 26 times. He also ran the ball 164 times for 482 yards and 16 touchdowns. So Sam Ehlinger, key piece of that offense, dark horse candidate for a Heisman. What your thoughts on Sam Ehlinger?
Yeah, definitely. Just one thing that jumps off the page is his difference from his freshman year to his sophomore year. Obviously, he comes in and replaces Shane Buechele, who's now at SMU. You know, he's only done better, you know, since he's grown one more year. So you got to expect him to play even better this year. We'll see. I mean, with the way their defense has to rebuild, do they take that into account with how their offense plays? Because you do have to, you know, think of that in all phases of the game. So his freshman year, he threw for 1,915 yards. And then his sophomore year, he threw for 3,292. So big difference there. His yards per attempt were okay. But one thing that from his stat lines that really jumps out is 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Yeah. That's really, really good. If you look at quarterbacks from last year, it's not the most passing touchdowns. I think your guy,
Dwayne Haskins
had the most. Yeah. But then you look at his rushing touchdowns. I think he had like 16 maybe.
Yep.
So 41 touchdowns. That's no small feat. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Is that Heisman numbers? I'm not sure. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know that he's an elite quarterback. If you were to hold a gun to my head, and probably Longhorn fans wish they could at times, but no, I think he's a really, really good quarterback. He's one of the best quarterbacks coming back in the Big 12 this year. Mm-hmm. Him and Colin Johnston will be a force to be reckoned with. So it'll be exciting to watch those two. Devin DuVernay, I think, has grown into a formidable wide receiver.
Let's take a look at the rest of the starting projected starters, and we'll get into talking about them. So at running back, Keontae Ingram. Last year, he carried the ball 142 times for 708 yards and 3 touchdowns. You have Colin Johnston. You mentioned last year he had 68 catches for 985 yards and 7 touchdowns. Devin DuVernay, 41 catches, 546 yards and 4 touchdowns. You have Deshaun Jameson. Very limited action last year. Joshua Moore, limited action, had a touchdown. He is also in a little bit of trouble. We'll talk about that in a second. Cade Brewer at tight end. He's a redshirt sophomore. He had 2 catches last year. And then on the offensive line, you got a redshirt sophomore, 2 seniors, and 2 juniors. So not sure how many starts each have had, but they are upperclassmen. They've been there for a while. They've had experience. They've been through all that conditioning. So they should be okay on the offensive line. I mean, offensively, I think Texas is going to look pretty solid.
Yeah.
And then what we had mentioned about Joshua Moore is he got caught a few days ago carrying a loaded handgun, and he doesn't have a license, so it's up in the air what's going to happen to him. So he wasn't projected to start, but was expected to contribute at least. So, but clearly Colin Johnston's there going to be the go-to guy.
Yeah.
And I think Ellinger will look at Cade Brewer a lot. He'll be a target.
Yeah, which it's pretty crazy, that Brewer family that comes from Lake Travis. Michael Brewer was his brother, who started out at Texas Tech and then went to Virginia Tech, I believe. Virginia or Virginia Tech, I get those mixed up. But and then his brother Charlie Brewer is at Baylor now with the Bears. So great family. I know they're friends with the Mayfields, and but Lake Travis, for them to have the quarterbacks that they've had come out, because Cade, I believe, was a quarterback, won state championship or something. But phenomenal athletic family there. So just cool. I like that family.
So obviously Texas should be pretty solid in the Big 12 on offense. That's why they're going to be projected to be towards the top. That's why they're 10th ranked overall in the preseason AP. But the big questions for the big questions for them are on defense.
Yeah.
They only have 3 starters returning. Let's take a look at the projected starters on defense. At defensive end, Taquan Graham. He's a junior. Last year, 12 tackles and half a sack. At nose tackle, Keandre Coburn. He's a redshirt freshman, had 2 tackles last year. The other defensive end, Malcolm Roach, a senior, had 24 tackles. Linebacker Joseph Osaya, sophomore, 20 tackles and 1 sack. Ayodele Adeo is a redshirt freshman, has no stats from last year. Apologize if I messed up his name. Jeffrey McCulloch, 33 tackles, a sack, and an interception. He's a senior. At corner, Jalen Green, he's a sophomore, had 3 tackles last year. At the other corner, Anthony Cook, he's a sophomore, had 18 tackles and a sack. And then really the biggest strength of their defense, I believe, is both of their safeties. Brandon Jones is a senior, had 70 tackles and 2 interceptions last year. And then you have the sophomore, Caden Stearns, who last year had 62 tackles, a sack, and 4 interceptions. So those 2 safeties are very, very good. They're very solid. Everybody else kind of up there is that some have seen some playing time, others not that much. I mean, so it's kind of like a work in progress. Not saying they're going to be bad, but you have a lot of guys who played in mop-up duty, didn't see a lot of playing time, and we're just not sure how they're going to perform, especially against a team like LSU week 2.
Yeah, their defense definitely regressed last year, which is crazy because they signed some of the best. I mean, I know it takes time to get some of those guys acclimated to the college game. You're obviously not going to throw all true freshmen out there, but they had a really good class two classes ago. But Todd Orlando's defense just kind of regressed last year from the first year that him and Tom Herman took over. But when you have that many guys, that much turnover, sometimes it's a good thing, you know, that they had not that great. I think I don't remember where they ranked nationally last year, but it wasn't great in total defense. But sometimes that much turnover can be a good thing, getting fresh bodies in there.
Well, when you're wanting to change the culture, and when you're a new coach coming in like Tom Herman, and you're playing with the guys who were here from the previous coach.
Yeah, they're still playing with Mac Brown guys.
Yeah, so that they're finally starting to get those guys move out.
Yeah. And
Tom Herman's guys starting to move in, and so those guys are probably bought in more than the older guys. So it's a wait and see. I mean, we don't know. I think they're going to be pretty solid. Rather they're good enough to overtake Oklahoma in the Big 12. I'm not sure about that, but they're going to be a really good team this year. So is there anything you wanted to add about them before we get to the schedule?
Just that I think that top 10 is probably about right for them. I wasn't surprised to see them sitting right there at 10. It's probably somewhere where they want to be. Obviously, they want to be higher. To me, preseason polls, it's whatever.
They are kind of meaningless.
Right.
I mean, I heard Dusty Dvorak works for ESPN. I heard him on the radio, and I think I agree with him that it would be nice if the AP and the coaches polls didn't come out until like week 3.
Yeah.
So because what happens
you got to have something for clout.
Well, and all it is for us to talk about. But
Yeah.
but what I don't like about it though is that, so let's say you have somebody ranked like 8th, and just pick any team you want. They're ranked 8th in the preseason. Well, everything they go week 1, week 2 is based on that, and they may be 3 weeks in and you might realize they're not that good.
Yeah.
But they're not out of the top 25
Yeah.
because maybe they've won. And so I think you get a better gauge on where everybody's at after the third week.
Yeah.
And then you can set your top 25, and then guys can move from there. Because you take like the Pac-12.
Yeah.
You know, they have such a horrible reputation right now. And Oregon's probably the best team, Oregon and Utah. But, you know, they're already starting at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
And if Oregon were to run the table, they're having to start down here and move up where maybe they were already up here to begin with.
Yeah.
And so that maybe keeps them out of the playoffs at the end. I'm not saying Oregon's going to make the playoffs, but it just I think it puts some teams at a disadvantage who might be better than what people expect going into the season.
There was one year like 2011 where it just, I mean, it was madness how many different weeks teams were moving up and down, and it's crazy. But it kind of gives you, for me, it gives you just kind of a blueprint of the year. And then if teams start winning, they're going to move up, you know.
Yeah.
By about week 7, you start to see who the good teams are. And so this year, I do think Texas is one of them. We will get into breaking down each game and see where you guys can argue with us on.
So let's take a look at the schedule, and we'll just briefly tell you how we think they're going to win or lose. We won't talk about the game a whole lot. We'll just give you what we think. This is based completely on everybody being healthy, what we see on paper.
Yeah.
You know, things change throughout the season. We do picks every week, and our pick coming up in that week may be different than what we say here.
Right.
But this is just right now what we think Texas has going for us. So let's take a look at the schedule. First one, Louisiana Tech, August 31st. I have them winning.
That's a win.
That's a win. September 7th, they host LSU. I believe LSU comes out with a win in that one.
I think LSU wins that one as well.
Okay, so next game, week 3 is at Rice. I think clearly that's a win, and I think a lot of young guys should get a lot of playing time in that one. Then they get Oklahoma State at home. Oklahoma State still hasn't settled on a quarterback yet. I think Texas wins that game.
Yeah, I do too.
Interesting side note, Oklahoma State has won the last 5 games in Austin that they played Texas. But this is a different era. Things are different.
Well, Gundy's kind of got a new energy this year, so we'll take a look at them kind of
as of right now.
As
of right now, I think Texas is the more solid team.
Yeah,
so
right now Texas wins that game.
Yeah. So looking at the next game, they have a bye week after that. Then they're at West Virginia. Austin Kendall's been named the starting quarterback there. I still think Texas wins that one.
It's the longest trip, I believe, in the Big 12 for any two teams. So I don't know. I don't know what Austin Kendall's going to do at West Virginia, but I think that Texas gets a win there.
Okay. Then October 12th, they get Oklahoma. This is the neutral site in Dallas. If anybody that knows anything about this, you know how big this is. We'll talk about this one briefly real quick. I personally, I'm not even going to make a pick here. I think it's a toss-up at this point because we don't know enough, and we don't know what Oklahoma's going to do defensively this year. If they're going to be any better than last year, that's up in the air. And then so you have a great Texas offense, I think will be pretty good against that defense. And then you have Texas's defense, not sure what they're going to have against the explosive Oklahoma offense, which might not be as explosive as last year, but it's still going to be pretty high-powered.
Yeah.
So by that point in the season, we'll have a better idea of how these teams are playing. But right now, I'm just going to say it's a 50-50 toss-up.
I'm kind of with you on it. I will pick one or the other just to say I picked one. I'm going to say Oklahoma just for the revenge factor.
Okay.
And I know they got revenge in the Big 12, but the Cotton Bowl's just different. It just is. And I say that just with the leadership of Jalen Hurts. I don't think they're going to come in. The times that they lose to Texas are the ones that they should win it. You go into it thinking that Oklahoma's going to win this. I don't think they have a game like that this year because Jalen Hurts, I believe he's that kind of leader that is not going to let that team go in unprepared.
Well, and I'll throw this out there. So if I had to make a pick right now, if I'm just going to make one, I'll say Oklahoma. One of the key factors, I think, in that game is Jalen Hurts, and this is why. Sam Ehlinger's from the Austin area. He grew up with this rivalry. A lot of players on both teams know this rivalry, and it's a huge thing for them. Jalen Hurts has played in the national championship game. He's played in the Auburn-Alabama games, which is huge. He didn't grow up with this.
He's from Houston, so he kind of knows probably.
Yeah, but I think, that's true. But I think for him coming into this as a quarterback, as a graduate senior like he is, to him it's just another game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
The
and
pressure
by that,
won't get to him.
The pressure won't get to him, and for him it's just business as usual.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to get wrapped up in it as much as some of the other players do.
I will say this is the closest the two teams have been since Texas started kind of taking that dive. I really do believe that this is the closest those two teams have been in talent, just in overall program, football program there at each university. I think this is the closest those two have been in a long, long time.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to see it too. I love, I don't like my Sooners going into that game thinking they're just going to walk in and take it. Yeah. And then just to turn around and it not happen.
I think after last year, I don't think anybody takes anything for granted in that game. So
I will say, though, if they continue to play twice a year, I don't think either team wins both times in the year. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to beat the same team twice. Right. So if Oklahoma does win that and they play for the Big 12 championship, I will be very nervous for that game.
Okay, so we're up to that point right now, and and just making picks, that's 2 losses for Texas so far. So let's take a look at the rest of the schedule. After Oklahoma, on October 19th, they get Kansas at home. I like Kansas to be better this year, but that's certainly a win for Texas.
They have Kansas at home or at Kansas?
At home. At home against Kansas. Yeah, Kansas at home.
That's right. They played at Kansas this last year, and we gave them crap for going back. No, they win that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they're at TCU October 26th. I got to take Texas. I think they're the better football team.
I do too, and I only hesitate just because, and I'll explain myself here when we get to that game, but I'll say a win for Texas there.
Okay. They get a bye week November 2nd, and then they are home against Kansas State November 9th. I think that's a win.
That's a win.
And then they're at Iowa State November 16th. I think that's a loss. I think that it's going to be too tough for them to go up there. I think Iowa State is, in my opinion, if you saw our Big 12 predictions, I think they're the second best team in the Big 12. So I think it's a win for Iowa State.
So completing my thought,
okay.
I think they'll drop either TCU or Iowa State. Okay. One or the other.
One or the other.
I don't think they drop both. I think that they it's just their defense. I mean, they're coming off a not great year, and I know what you're going to say. You're a Sooner fan. You have no place to talk about defense. But yes, I do, because I watch these teams. And I just think coming off a year like that, yes, it is later on in the season, but I just think TCU or Iowa State, they drop one of them, probably not both. But that's kind of getting into some dicey territory, not really competing for the Big 12 if they have 2 losses. They did last year have, 3 Big 12 losses and still?
Yeah, they were 7-3 in the Big 12.
Yeah, so it's, not out of the realm of possibility.
Well, I mean, I had Oklahoma and Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah.
So, I think this game probably is going to decide who gets to play Oklahoma.
This is not one of those years to lose 3 in the conference too,
right?
Because it's not as down as it was last year. Yeah. I think there's there's like 5 really good quarterbacks in this league, and there's the coaches. They've boosted the coaching staffs across the Big 12. So I'll say a loss here, just to say they win with TCU and then they lose.
So then after that they go to Baylor, and I believe that's going to be a win.
I believe it'll be a win, but it won't be easy.
It'll be close, but
Charlie Brewer to Denzel Mims, just mark that duo down.
And then
it's good.
And then the last game is home against Texas Tech. That's a win, barring any major injuries or anything like that.
At home?
At home. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'll say a win there.
Okay.
Texas Tech they may be better this year. They've got one of the good quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year.
So if that were to happen, well, I guess we're in agreement with all the games. If that were to happen, they finish 8-2 in the Big 12. And 9-3 overall.
Yeah, and that's competing.
And I think that's a good. Yeah. And I need to say too, when you look at college football, 9 wins, 10 wins is a great season.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't argue that. But once you get to 10 wins, I mean, to get to 11 is really a huge jump, and get to 12 and be undefeated. I mean, it's just it's amazing how much more it takes to get that extra win.
Yeah.
When you start talking about that level, and if you manage to get the playoffs, how hard it is to win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, So I think Texas is still a 9-10 win program. I don't think they've made that step to 11
Yeah.
yet.
Somebody did say, one of their coaches told, I can't remember what interview I was reading, but somebody said one of their coaches mentioned it's a lot harder, it's harder to get that 11th win than it is to win 10 games.
Yeah.
So it's easier to win 10 games than it is to get that 11th, 12th win.
Yeah.
So you spot on right there.
Yeah. So and you see it all the time. I mean, you see, and then what happens is you get coaches and teams that win 10 games every year, and then the fan base is like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Well,
and
still
so,
amateur athletics. I mean, these players are human beings. There's the mental aspect that comes in that. Or weather, or just whatever. Maybe their flight's delayed.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Yeah.
Out of the 129, teams in NCAA, I mean,
it could be something as simple as your starting quarterback decided to party the night before the game.
Right.
And I only bring that up, and I'm not going to mention the team or the player, but we did have somebody comment based on their favorite team that said they lost a game last year because their quarterback was high the night before the game. It got high before the game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can tell you that he had a pretty good season, but that one game that this person was talking about, he really stunk. Man. So I hope that's not true. But you never know. I mean, a guy's girlfriend breaks up with him. These guys are 18 years old, 19 years old. Who knows how they're going to react to that.
And they're not all rock solid mentality-wise,
Right. They're not professionals. Yeah, and even professionals, I mean, they're still human beings.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've rambled enough. So we think 9-3 for Texas in 2019. Barring major setbacks.
And I'm going to save you the time in the comment section. Yes, I'm a Sooner fan, but I still respect Texas. I mean, I think they're going to win some games. They'll be good this year, and we'll see.
I will point out, I was going back and looking at like Tom Herman's history, and even when he was at Ohio State as offensive coordinator, the teams he's with they start very slow.
Yeah.
It's like third, fourth game before they kick it in. And last year, even with the season they had last year, they struggled and almost lost to Tulsa at home.
Well, they beat Oklahoma in 2016 with Houston.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty good start, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That was a rough season
for
Oklahoma.
Yeah, and Texas has always kind of been that way. They struggle the first couple games, and so we'll see. Okay, that's it for our preview for Texas for 2019. Please check out some of our other videos, including our Big 12 predictions. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. Please like the video. And always, we love your comments. Please leave your comments and tell us what you think. If we got any of this wrong, starting lineups are subject to change. So by the time you watch it, something could be different. Let us know. It's not that we didn't do our research. It's just, things change. So, all right. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.